Hi, everyone. Sean here with Logos, and welcome to the live training. Hey, thanks so much for attending one of my sessions. I really do appreciate the time you are investing in this because I count it a privilege to be even a small part of your Logos learning process. I have about 28 years of pastoral experience, and I've used Logos for preaching, teaching, Bible study, seminary classes, and more. And so I'm just here to help you learn what I have learned. So let's go ahead and begin by practicing using the chat. And let us know in the chat area there, please, how long have you been using Logos? If you are brand new to the webinar format, you should be able to find a little box there on your end that says type your message here with the send button. And when you respond there, that'll let me know you're hearing me. Things are basically going okay on your end. Plus, you might want to use the chat during the webinar, so please feel free to do so. For now, though, just let us know in the chat, please, how long have you been using Logos? And everyone, please take note who the newest to Logos is. You might want to go ahead and give them a special welcome. Well, thanks all for being here. Now, today, we are going to talk about how you can organize your preaching and teaching with the Sermon Manager. So as you well know, from the description of the webinar, we are focusing in on how to take advantage of, how to use the Sermon Manager tool. So thanks so much for being with me today. Now, let's make the most of this time. I'm going to give you about 30 minutes of content, followed by about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. So if you have a question during the webinar, please ask it. Now, don't put it in the chat, though, because I might miss it there later. Switch over to the Q&A tab next to it, put your question there, and then it will be ready for me at the end. And then please stick around for our Q&A time. Also, you will get a full recording of the webinar, so watch for an email within a few hours with the link to that. If you don't get it by tomorrow, then please email me, and I will make sure that you do. My email address is there in the blue, the light blue note on your end. Notice it. Sean.grubb@logos.com. Plus, if you want to check out my other live trainings, then you can visit logos.com/Sean Grubb. All that information, again, is right there on your end in the light blue note. And finally, please do me the honor of filling out the survey for this webinar. There's a link to it above chat there, and that's going to be your way to help me serve you better in the future. And it's only going to take you a minute or less. But your feedback is always valuable to me and my entire team. In fact, every time you give us a positive survey response, you are supporting our webinar agenda. So please help us to continue to do this for you, okay? All right, well, today I am going to show you how to find your sermons in Logos in the Sermon Manager tool. I'm also going to show you how to plan your sermons in the Logos Sermon Manager tool. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to import sermons that you've already written in Microsoft Word, how you can import those into the Sermon Manager as well, okay? All right, well, I'm going to jump over to my Logos here. And I'm going to make sure that you can see what I can see. Just give me a moment here. And looks like we're good to go. All right, excellent. So here I am logged into my desktop Logos. You can use Logos on the desktop app, on the web app, and on the mobile app. You can do unlimited installations on computers and devices. And remember, all of your content, resources, and more, it's all going to sync across the platforms. So you can use one account anywhere and everywhere. Now, you will notice significant differences between the desktop app, the web app, and especially the mobile app. So if you're following along with me on another app, then you will see differences. Plus, I am using Logos Max with full features and a very robust library, which means if your desktop looks different than my desktop, or if you don't have certain tools that I have, That's another reason why. Now, that's to be expected in any case, but it shouldn't keep you from being able to learn during this time. In fact, if you're missing features, you'll actually be more educated about what you would get in an upgrade if you choose to do that. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to make sure you know the best way to get the best subscription price for you. So please stick around for that, okay? All right, so here we are, again, logged into my desktop Logos. If you're following along with me and your dashboard is showing like me here and so forth, simply come over here to the main toolbar on the left-hand side, and let's navigate down to the Tools menu right here. Notice it, okay? So go ahead and click on the Tools menu. Now you can see that when we do this, I already have the Sermon Manager, which is what we're focusing in on today. I already have that pinned to the top because I want to be able to get to it quickly and easily. You can do the same thing with yours by finding it in the list here. Now you may have to expand or collapse these sections as you go, as you scroll and look for it, or better yet, here's what I recommend. Everybody just click right here. Make sure you're in the search box of the menu and type the word sermon. That's all you need to do. It should narrow it down to the content section and the sermon builder and the sermon manager. Now, if it didn't, that's maybe because you don't have the sermon builder and the sermon manager. They come together at a certain level. If you don't have them, don't be alarmed. Stick around and learn what you're missing out on and what you would gain in an upgrade if you do that later. If you do have them, then of course you're going to be able to follow along with me. Now, keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, I do 2 separate webinars on each of these. The Sermon Builder is where you write your sermon documents, whether it be a manuscript or an outline or whatever you use to preach from or teach from. This is a document writer, the Sermon Builder. The Sermon Manager is where those sermon documents are automatically being saved and organized for you. Plus, you can use the Sermon Manager to sort of plan out your preaching and teaching in the future, which is what we're going to cover today. Now, there's too much in each of these to cover in one webinar. So I do a separate webinar for each. Today, we're focusing in on the Sermon Manager. It doesn't matter which order you do them in. So I'm doing the Sermon Manager now. I have another webinar for the Sermon Builder. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually put the link to my other webinar in the chat for you, okay? So I'm putting it in there right now. I just sent that over to you there, okay? Let me come back here and type sermon and get back to this here, all right? So I do a separate webinar on designing your presentations with the Sermon Builder. So that's the first thing I want you to kind of keep in mind, that they are 2 separate tools that kind of work with the same thing, your sermons. One is for writing the sermons. One is for automatically saving, organizing, and scheduling, and so forth, which we'll show you today. I do 2 separate webinars, one for each. And so you can get that information. Email me if you have any questions about that. Okay, that's the first thing. Second of all, it's very important that you don't let the word sermon scare you away from using this for other things. You might say, well, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a Sunday school teacher at my church. Well, first of all, you're not just a Sunday school teacher, okay? Being a Sunday school teacher is very, very important, okay? Or maybe you say, well, I don't teach Sunday school, nor do I preach, but I lead small group ministries, and sometimes I have a set of notes for that. Anything like that. I use the Sermon Manager and the Sermon Builder for sermons, for Sunday school lessons, for devotionals, for small group leadership. Anytime you want a set of notes to help you with a presentation that you're doing or a leading that you're doing with one person all the way up to an auditorium full of people, you can use this for that, okay? With this now, I don't go to any other programs. I stay right in the program I'm studying to also write all the things that I'm going to use in ministry. So keep that in mind, okay? So now we're focusing in on the sermon manager. So here's what I want to do, okay? What you can do is you can right-click on it right here and choose pin to top. If you do it, it'll come right up here to this area like I have it. That way you can easily get to it. You don't have to find it in the list. It's going to stay in the list, but you can still find it more easily that way. You can always unpin it if you don't want it later. Come up here to the top right-hand corner of the menu and X out of your search, and you should see it restored to the original way. Sermon Manager will still be here. You can also create a shortcut on my own personal account. I've done this before, but you can just go ahead and click and hold and drag this right over here and drop it here. So now it's even easier to get to. Now remember, it's still going to live in the Tools menu. It's still going to live where it belongs. It's still going to be pinned to top even. But it'll also be right here, just making it easier to get to if you want to. Now, don't be alarmed by this if you realize later on you don't really want it here. All you have to do is right-click and delete it from the shortcuts bar. That will not delete it from Logos. It'll just delete it from the shortcuts bar, okay? Now, let's go ahead and click on it to open it. I'm going to click on it to open it. And when I do, notice that it actually opens in a floating window. You might have to resize the panel or rearrange it, but it should open in a floating panel. You can open it on the Logos desktop if you want to, but I like it to open by default, that this is the default. I like the default that it opens in a floating panel, because now I can take this by clicking at the top right up here, just clicking and holding anywhere at the top here, just click and hold. I can actually drag this over onto a secondary monitor or something like that. So if I'm studying in Logos and I've got Bibles and books and tools open on my workspace, and then I have this notion to start planning out some sermons or a sermon, and I want to bring up or find a sermon even, then I can go ahead and click on my sermon manager. It opens in a floating window, and it doesn't disturb anything that I've got going on my desktop, my Logos workspace. So I kind of like that it does that. Now, again, you can open it otherwise. So I'm going to X out of it here. One thing you can do is you can just drag it. Watch this. If I click, hold, and drag it, I can drag it to whatever whatever section I want there, maybe hover in the middle. And so it's the same thing. It's just worked into my Logos workspace that way. Now I'm going to X out of it. I'm going to go ahead and click on Sermon Manager and let it open in the default way. That is in this floating window. This is how I prefer it, okay? All right, now let me give you a little bit of a lay of the land here. First of all, right in front of you, and you may need to follow along without doing much, because if you've never used this, you don't have any sermons to look at, okay? Yours will look a little bit empty, right, compared to mine. I've imported a lot of my sermons from my personal account. These are actual sermons that I've preached, actual sermons that I've created in Logos and preached over the years. And notice what I've got here. I've got a list here. It's a spreadsheet. It's basically a spreadsheet of my sermons right here. And this is what the primary content of this panel is, a spreadsheet of my sermons. These columns of information are pulled from the metadata on the sermon, which I'm going to show you how to add here in a moment. But I can add more of these columns by coming to the three dashes right here and adding additional columns. I can also rearrange these columns by clicking and holding and dragging the column to another location on the spreadsheet. Click, hold, drag, and drop it somewhere else. I can also sort by the column headers by clicking, and notice it's ascending by title. If I click again, it'll be descending by title. If I click again, it goes back to the original, which is really ordered by the week, okay? Now I can change the range of dates that I'm actually showing sermons from right up here. Right now, I'm showing all 117 sermons that are in this account. Now, this is my demo account, so I don't have as many in this as I do in my personal account. But if I click on this little drop-down arrow, I can show the sermons within a particular year or a certain amount of months and so forth. I can change that up. We'll leave it on all for now. Okay, so this works just like a spreadsheet of any kind of information, but it's a spreadsheet of my sermons. Now, watch when I come over here to the top right. Yours might already be on, but there's this I button top right that actually turns on this side info panel. Now, this is the metadata categories for each sermon. If I select a sermon, now be careful. If I hover on a sermon right here and click on the title, it's going to open the sermon. I don't want to do that. I don't want to open the sermon right now. I just want to click on the line item for that sermon. So I'll make sure I don't click on the title. I click anywhere else. And when I do, notice it loads up the metadata, title, series, description, topics. If I click on another one, same thing. Click on another one, same thing. Okay. So I'm going to click on my date range here and go back to this. See that there we go. These are a little bit more up to date from 2024. Okay. Click on this. Got the metadata. Click on this. Got the metadata. See that? And this metadata is information that you just put in there when you write your sermon or as you're writing your sermon or even after you've written your sermon. All through that process, you can add this metadata. We'll give you an example of that in a moment. But all of this metadata, now, not every point, but this metadata basically fuels the columns here and also the filters over here. Now, these filters on the left-hand side can be turned off and on by the sidebar right up here. So if I click the sidebar button, it closes that. If I click it again, it opens that. And now I can use the search field and the filters to narrow down my sermons. Imagine having thousands of sermons in here over the years and being able to group them and filter them and find whatever you're looking for in a matter of moments, really. In fact, imagine I'm looking for a sermon that I know I preached about prayer and so forth in the book of James. I'm really looking for that. I don't remember when it was or where I preached it, but I'm going to come over here to the filters. And I'm going to come down here to the Bible book because I put in certain verses for the metadata. I can see that here in the Bible book section, I've got 28 sermons on the book of James that have the book of James in that metadata. So I'm going to click on James here. It's going to add the filter to the top here, narrows it down. This list is now just the 28 results. I also know that the sermon was on prayer, so I can come over here to the topics, and here is the topic of prayer that has 4 left. I'm going to click on prayer. It adds that result, that filter, and now I'm just down to the 4 results there. And I know I had the word team in the title, so I'm going to click on the box up here at the top. I'm going to type in team, and it narrows it down even further to this sermon right here. Imagine having thousands of sermons and being able to find the exact sermon you're looking for based upon whatever parameters, where you preached it, when you preached it, what the topics were, what the verses were, okay, who you preached to, things like that. And being able to hone in on that one sermon or even a group of sermons. I love this because if I clear this out over here, one thing I like is that here is 3 sermons that I preached at a Bible camp called Mount Tabor. When I go back to Mount Tabor again to preach again, I'm gonna click here and see those sermons that I preached there. I don't want to preach them again, right? I don't want to preach them all over again. So that's just one example of how useful this could be. You can imagine. So that's how you find your sermons. Now, right now, we've been looking at this in a week grid view, a grid by the week. Okay. Notice you can switch up here, though, from week grid to radial calendar. Now, when I switch to the radial calendar, it's just another view of the same data. It's just another view of the same data. Notice, because I don't have any sermons in here for this year, there's really no data. And this might be what yours looks like, okay? For this reason, I recommend first using the week grid as you begin to build up your sermons as you're using it. It'll make more sense in a spreadsheet form. But on occasion, then switch over to the radial calendar, and then you'll see how that works. For example, I'd come up here to this year, and let's switch to, how about 2021? There we go. That's looking a little different, isn't it? Or I can come back up here and let's switch to 2022. Let's do 2023. Okay, that makes more. Okay, so there we go. How about 2024? Okay, let's go back to 2023 here. Okay. Now, again, I don't have, this is just a demo account, so I don't have a lot of variables here to fill this out and make more sense to it. But you're going to have different levels to this radial calendar. You're going to have a series level. You're going to have the sermon level. You're going to have another level for different services. This is when I preached at that camp. Okay, so that's why it's on a different level all by itself. But here's the thing. This will all make more sense over time as you add sermons and you switch to the radial calendar. Use the week grid. This is my advice when you're beginning to use this. Use the week grid view because, we pretty much all know how spreadsheets work. And then as you add a sermon, switch to the radial calendar and look at how it's viewed on here. Then keep using the week grid, but switch back to the radial calendar. Now, over time, the radial calendar might be the way you want to keep it. And you might like this view better because you can add info and you can add sermons. You can do basically everything you can do in the week grid view, but it is just a different kind of view. So I'm going to switch back to the week grid view here, and I'm going to switch back to my all so we can get back to where we're at. Okay, so that's talking about finding your sermons. A little bit later on, we'll find maybe a sermon based upon content, but just notice here that as you're using the sermon builder to write your sermons and lessons, they're automatically being saved and organized here so that you can easily find them later. All right, so let's talk about planning your sermons. We talked about finding them. That's once they're here, right? But now, what about planning out your sermons for this coming week, or maybe a series you're going to do, or maybe you want to plan a sermon series or a sermon for when Thanksgiving comes or Christmas comes or whatever, and you want to be able to do that. So the way you add sermons to this schedule or this spreadsheet is right up here in the top right-hand corner. This is where you're going to be adding, right up here. So for now, we're just going to add one sermon at a time, not a series. We're just going to add one sermon at a time. And these blue hyperlink options allow you to choose some things before you click add. So do I want to just do a blank sermon? In other words, it's just going to be a blank sermon builder document. Do I want that? Or do I want to click here and choose one of the templates that I've created? Now, I'm going to create a template here in a little bit so you can learn how to do that. And you can have as many different templates as you want. But for now, we're going to stay with blank sermon. What date are you going to preach this on? Click on here. If you don't know right now, leave it on no date. It'll keep it up here at the top. But if you do know what date, click here and you can choose from the selections here. Usually I know what date I'm going to preach it on, and I'll just select, maybe it's going to be June 29th. So I'm going to preach this sermon on June 29th. I'm going to click there, and I've got all the selections I need so far. I'm going to click on add. It's going to add that onto my schedule. So the sermon has been added to the schedule. Now I just need to add some metadata to the sermon right over here. So just go and fill out these different categories here. So for example, it's untitled right now, but I know that it's going to be a sermon on the gospel. A lot of times what I'll do is I will put a temporary title in here because sometimes I don't know the title even to the very end, but I want to have it titled something. I don't want it to just be untitled sermon. I don't want to have a bunch of untitled sermons out there with different numbers attached to them. So I'll just put in maybe the passage or the topic or the theme or something temporary. So this is going to be on the gospel. So I'm just going to give the title, The Good News. Okay. And maybe this is a series on the gospel. If it's not in a series, leave it blank. But if it is in a series, put the sermon series title. So we'll say this is a series on the gospel. There we go. All right. Now, here's where you label the number. If you have 3 in a series, you're going to want to label them 1, 2, or 3, or whatever that is. We'll leave this blank. Topics you can add right here. These topics will become filters over here. Okay, so you're pulling from a list of thousands of topics, I believe, and so you're going to have to type, then choose. So click in the box, and then we'll type, how about gospel? Is that an option? Yep, here's one of them. You're going to type, then choose. What about power? Power, how about power? Yep, there we go. And how about salvation? Yep, here's that. And put in as many as you want your sermon identifiable by, okay, or tagged by. Think of it as kind of like searchable tags, if you will. And we're going to get down to tags here in a moment, but these topics are things that are basically a pre-generated list. You can't change them. You can't modify them. You can't add to the list. You got to type, then choose, at least right here, okay? How about believe or belief? Maybe we'll do belief. How about righteousness? Whoops, what do I got going on there? I got something extra in there. Righteousness. There we go. Righteousness, faith. And I didn't spell that right. Here we go. There's faith. Okay, so you just, again, put as many as you want. Again, type, then choose. How about passages? Well, this is going to be on Romans 1, 16, and 17. So I'm going to type in RO1 space 16-17, 17 there, and select. Logos will recognize the abbreviations. Put in your passages. Now this is if the main passage I might be preaching on for this text, but I might put in cross references too. You can put as many texts as you want this sermon to be identifiable by. Okay, and tags. Okay, now these are really personal. Okay, I just put in personal. Okay, okay. So here's a personal one. You can name them. This is a new tag. If it was one that I had used before, it would bring that up. You can choose that, but you can add your own personal tags here. If the topics are not enough, you can always add words down here that you want your sermon to be tagged by. Now, be careful that you don't use the tags for something that's going to be used somewhere else. I've seen people suggest that they want to use tags for where they preach or teach the sermon or lesson at. Okay, fine, but you're going to have a section for that down here: venue, church, or other setting. So I would just say be careful not to do, you don't need overlaps there like that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. How about a description, target duration? You can put all this information in. The target duration here is just a label, so you know how long this is a sermon or lesson for, so that when you go to choose in the future, you don't choose a 40-minute message to do during a 10-minute devotional time or something like that. And then you can put in these other categories as well. How about the venue here? I'll just put in maybe the church. You can type in the church that you've put in there previously, or add a church, or add a location, or add an event, whatever. We'll do morning worship here. Okay. Audience. If you have liturgical services and you follow a liturgical calendar, you can put that information in here. All of it becomes part of the metadata and also the filtering options and searching options and column options here in that sermon, okay? So put as much as you want in. Now, when you're ready to start writing the sermon, then you want to come up here and click on the title. And when you click on the title, it's going to open up that sermon in the sermon builder. This is the sermon builder. This is what we're not going to cover in depth right now, I do a whole other webinar on that. So I'm just going to expand this here. But notice while you're writing your sermon, you can automatically create slides and handouts and questions and more. But notice up here, the info panel. It's here too. So if I click this on, this is the metadata that we added. I love this because I can be writing my sermon, whether it be a manuscript or an outline. And as I'm going, I can add more topics or more passages or more metadata, whatever I want to add there. Or maybe I couldn't think of a lot at the beginning, but now as I'm writing it, I can think of more. Okay, you can change the title, all of that, right? So that's how you add one sermon for a particular date. Now you can also use templates. I want to talk to you about templates here. Now templates are basically a sermon that you start and then you turn it into a template, and then every time you bring it up, it's already going to be filled into that point. So, you're probably familiar with this. You might use templates for different series you do, or maybe different services you do. And for your Sunday morning, you always, follow the same format in your sermon. Or maybe for devotionals for a prayer meeting, you always follow the same format, whatever. Or maybe you have seasonal or holiday type sermons. And you're going to have 5 sermons in a series, and they're all going to be basically the same format that you want to start with before you start filling in more of what's unique to the particular sermon. It's a template. You know what a template is. You can create as many different kinds of templates for as many different reasons as you want. You just come up here and add a blank sermon for no date because it's a template. And when you click on add, now you can take this and make it into a template. Here's how you do it. You click on the title, it opens it up, and in the info panel right here, click on the info panel right here. I'm just going to expand this a little bit here. This is where you change it from a sermon to a template. So I'll click on template, and then I'll fill in whatever bones I want to fill in, whatever outline that I want to start with for every sermon that I'm going to use this template for, whether it be a seasonal template or a topical template or a passage type, whatever it might be. Okay. So for example, maybe I want to put in the intro here. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to do intro. Okay. And I'm going to do proposition. Let's just get that like there a little bit better there. And we're going to do a transition. I like to have a transition and points. Okay. And a conclusion. Right. And I show all about this in the Sermon Builder webinar. So you might want to check that out. But for now, I'm just going to adding some things here to give you an example. Okay. And imagine this is where I want to start all of my sermons, that I'm going to write with this basic starting point. Okay. Now, what I recommend is in the title, make sure you put the word template. I'll show you why that's important. But I highly recommend that whenever you create a sermon or lesson or devotional template, put the word template in here. Okay, so I'm going to do template. Okay, my sermon template. Okay, I'm just going to do my sermon template here. All right. But it could be your template for your Romans series. It could be your template for your Advent series. It could be a template for your Sunday morning worship or a template for your Saturday prayer devotionals. Whatever templates you want to have. But make sure you put the word template in it. And as you switch this here and save things here, it's automatically saving. You're done. When you X out, that template is saved. Now, notice it's not on the sermon manager anymore. Why? Because it's not a sermon. So where is it at? Well, we're going to come up here to the top right. We're going to X out up here. We're going to come down here to the documents. It's a document. So are your sermons too, but it's no longer considered a sermon as well. It's just a document. So we're going to click on documents here. And here's why I told you to put the word template in. You can filter by various things, but template isn't one of the filters. So we want to click in the box here and we want to type in template. And now it's going to narrow it down to all of my templates with just by putting that word in. That's just a little trick that will help you with your templates. And then I can click on the template right here. Here's my sermon template, brings it back up. I can modify it all I want and I'm good to go. Now, if I come down here to the sermon manager, now when I start a sermon, I can use here that sermon template. Here it is, my sermon template. Now let's talk about adding a series. You may want to add a series of, for Advent. Advent's in the future. I'm going to be doing some, 4 or 5 sermons on Advent, or I'm going to do a series on a theme, or I know I'm going to do a series. So I'm going to add a series onto my schedule here. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, come over here and choose the amount of sermons you think it's going to be. Don't worry if you get it wrong or if it has to change. You can always right-click on any line item and move things. You can even select multiple ones and move all of them. So don't worry about that. But if you think it's going to be 3 sermons, for example, okay, you go here to the number 1. So we're going to come here to number 1, and I'm going to click on 3. There's going to be 3 sermons in this series. I think I might do a 4th, or I might do more, but right now I think it's going to be 3. So I'm going to click on the number 3. I'm not going to use a blank sermon. I want to start out with that sermon template I created for each of these. So I'm going to choose that option, and then no date. Well, I'm going to switch to the first date. I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to start it in July. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go to July 6th. I think what I'm going to do this series on the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th. So I'm going to choose the 6th for the first one. And then whenever you choose multiple sermons and a date, it opens up this additional option for you to change it from weekly on Sunday, which is a default, to some other option. I could do every 2 weeks on Wednesday. Okay, I could do every other day if I wanted to, or every 2 months on a particular day, whatever I want to do there, whatever the pattern is. It might be your Sunday morning, it might be your monthly prayer meeting, monthly devotional breakfast, whatever it might be. You can set that up on a series that way. Once you've got it set, just click on the add right here, and it's going to add those sermons onto the schedule per your choices there. Okay. Now we can add metadata over here on the right to this for all of them at the same time, or each one individually. Some of the metadata might be the same. So if it's the same for all of them, I want to select all of them. So how do I do that? Well, you can select one and you can hold the control button down and select any other ones that you want to select. See that? Or you can select one, hold the shift button down, select the last one, and you got them all selected. That's not a Logos thing, but Logos does it. You know how to select things in lists. You know how to select things in spreadsheets. Logos works the same way. So I'll select this one. I'll hold the shift button down, select the last one. It grabs all 3. Now the metadata will apply to all of them. This is going to be a series on love, and love is going to be in all of the titles. So I'm going to click on title, and I'm going to type in the word love. Notice it updates all of them, and it won't allow you to name it the same for all of them. So it adds a 2 and a 3 for now. This is going to be a series on love. So I'm going to click in series and do love. Okay. And I'm not going to number it because it'll number them all the same. I don't want that. They're going to be, the topics are love. Maybe I could put in a passage here. What's the passage I'm going to, oops, I didn't type then choose. Type, then choose. There we go. What passage? This is going to be Matthew 22:34, the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. You know the text. And so there we go. And put in as much metadata as you want that applies to all the sermons. Then choose the first one and update it as necessary. So I'll click here. This is going to be a sermon on loving God. I'll choose the second one. It's going to be a series on loving family. And I'll choose the final one, and this is going to be a sermon on loving others. Okay. All right. And see how it updates that. So there you go. That's how you would set up a sermon series. You can even come up here and in the date range, you can choose this year and it's going to show you all the empty dates. And you can just choose a date and add sermons that way as well. Okay, so maybe I want to add one for Thanksgiving here, and I want to add some here for my, Advent series or whatever I want to do there. Okay, so that's how you can add and plan out your sermon schedule with Logos. Now let's talk about. I'm going to switch back here. Finally, let's talk about importing your sermons, because here's the thing: once you start using this for your sermons, lessons, devotionals, and more, everything's being automatically saved and organized. And the sermon builder, you're going to love it. I mean, we haven't even touched on it much, but you're going to love the sermon builder. Once you start using these things, it's great. But here's the thing: you might have all these sermons that you did in Word that are not in here, and they're not organized with the system, and you might want to get them in here. Well, you can put them in here. You can import them in. Now, this is important. Listen carefully. You can only do this with docx files. So you don't have to put in the question now, can I import my Google Sheet or can I import my Google Docs or my Pages? No. Okay. You can only do docx files. But here's the thing: in most of those programs, you just have to convert them into docx files. It's an extra step, but it's doable. Okay. If they're in docx, great. If they're not in docx, get them in docx. And when you have your docx sermons to import, just come up here to the 3-dot panel menu right here. 3-dot panel menu right here. Choose to import right here. Okay. This is for importing a spreadsheet, a CSV file into the Sermon Manager. But right now we want to talk about importing an actual sermon or sermons. You can choose multiple ones. So you just click on the choose here, and then you choose from your files. Okay, I'm just going to choose this command in the New Testament. I've brought in multiple sermons. When I brought in all these sermons that are in here, I brought them all in from my own personal account. So, just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to click on open. When I do, it's going to process that. One sermon is created. When I click on done, it opens up the sermon. And it is going to respect your formatting, although it's not perfect sometimes, but it will do its best to respect the formatting. You might have to update it a bit. Plus, it's going to recognize the sermon, the verses and so forth. So you'll have that as well. So there you go. That's how easy it is to bring a sermon in, or even multiple sermons in to the Sermon Manager. Okay. All right. Well, that's what I wanted to show you today. Now, all of these sermons now are all searchable here as well. So we can click on the search tool here. We can click on docs here. We can choose from your docs, narrow it down to sermons, and I can use now the advanced search tool in Logos to find things in just my sermons. It's another reason why I really like that. Okay. All right. Well, that's what I wanted to show you today. Now, before we get to the questions, because that's where we're going to here soon. If you didn't get your question in, you're going to want to get it in soon. Okay, but before we get to the questions, I want you to notice the Help Center right here. The Help Center is where you can go to get started when you need help or you want to learn more after the webinar. Just come here and do an AI-assisted search, choose one of the options, and this is going to be your single launch pad into all things Logos support. So I hope that'll be a help to you as well. Also, please don't forget to fill out the survey before you go. That's going to be your way to help me serve you better in the future. And remember, every time you give us a positive survey response, you are supporting this webinar agenda. So please help us to continue to do this for you. Now, I popped it up in front of you there so that it would be easy to get to. If you click that, it will not close the webinar on you, so you can stick around to see what questions we got. But go ahead and get that started at least while I grab a quick drink and take a brief pause. Hold on one moment. All right. Thank you. You should have that survey going by now. You can finish it here in a minute if you need a little bit more time. Also wanted to mention that if you are not on Logos subscriptions, then you are out of date significantly and you are missing out, because Logos in subscription is the best Logos ever by far. It's more powerful. It's more affordable by far than ever before. More powerful for a lot of reasons, but the smart search alone, exclusive to subscription, is worth the subscription by itself, and it's just one of many features you get in subscription. Also, it's more affordable. Yes, Logos is far more affordable in subscription than it's ever been, because you can have the same level of Logos that I do, max, with no missing features. You can have it today, and it's not going to cost you thousands or even hundreds of dollars upfront like it used to. It's just going to be a low monthly subscription fee. And the best way to get the best price is to call the number on your screen. I know you can do things online. I know you might even be able to find the same price, but you're going to be able to make a more confident and better informed decision by talking to our experts at 888-510-8262 today. You can use that same number to call about other resources, and I highly recommend the Lexham Press Preaching and Teaching Bundle. Jot that number down and call to get your price for this. Take a screenshot. If you are preaching and teaching, or you anticipate that you will be preaching and teaching in the future, then these are resources that will help you. So get more information about this as well at the same number there on your screen. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and check out the questions now. If you can stick around, great. If not, hey, it's been an honor being a part of your Logos learning process. Hope to see you next time. Thanks. All right, question number one here from Dave. We just got a couple of questions. Dave, is there a way to search the content of the sermons that are listed? Yes. And I'm just going to briefly show you that. Okay. So Dave, watch this. Okay. So in my opinion, the best way to do that is to go to the search tool. Okay. So you click on the search tool right here. And then when you choose the categories up here, okay, we're used to doing Bible, book, all, but you want to choose docs. If you don't see it, click on the more button right here and find docs. That's narrowing it down first to using the search tool for all of your user created content. Then go even further and switch from the blue hyperlink right here. Click on the blue hyperlink right here, and you can go right here to sermon right here. Okay. And now, whatever search you do here, it's looking in just your sermon. So, for example, I could find the word law and the word grace, law and grace in any of my sermons. Any sermons where I have the word law. Actually, let me do this. Let me do near. Let me use the word. I'm going to do the word law near the word grace in any of my sermons. Click on that, and here we go. Here are some sermons where in that sermon the word law is near the word grace. And here are the hits for that. I can just click on the blue hyperlink to open that sermon then. Okay, so you see what I did there. I went to the search tool. I went to the docs category. I chose from all docs or your docs to sermon, put my search parameters in, and that's the great thing. Now I can have thousands, hundreds of thousands of sermons and really be able to find things from any of those sermons that way. Great question, Dave. Thanks for pointing that out. Sango says, will the sermon manager and sermon builder work without internet? So, yes. Let me think about this for a moment. Okay. So here's the thing. The answer is yes, but it will sync up with your it will only sync up with your other devices when you're online. So if you're offline, you can use those tools, but you won't, like, for example, here's the thing. I can write a sermon in my desktop, and usually what I've done in the past is I preach it from my tablet in Logos on preach mode. I show that in the sermon builder tool. Well, if I'm offline and I create that sermon on this computer and I don't go online, then it won't be available in my tablet. It'll be in Logos. But it won't be there. And as soon as I go online, it will sync up with those other options. So the answer is yes, basically. Samuel, I had to come in late. Will there be a recording of this presentation? Yes. Whenever you register for a webinar, you automatically receive a recording, whether you attend or not. So keep that in mind. Demita, I don't know if I'm saying that name right. Demita. Oh, Samuel first. Sorry. Oh, no, that was Samuel. That was Samuel's question. All right. So Demita, I got Logos 2023, but forgot what? Wait. I got Logos in 2023, but forgot I had it. I'm just learning about the sermon. I missed a few minutes of this. And did you show anything on AI? I did not get. So the AI tools are in the sermon builder, which I show in my sermon builder webinar. So I did not show. And by the way, they're awesome. The sermon assistant tools in the Logos subscription sermon builder, they're amazing. I love them. And I do show them in my sermon builder webinar. So I didn't show any of those AI because, again, this is, as you well know from the description of the webinar, this was a sermon manager webinar. I do a separate sermon builder webinar. So please check that out for that. All right. Let's see here. Larry, how do you add an already written sermon to a series? Well, I think you just add the series title into it. Let's just see if I can choose that here. Let's see here. Okay. So imagine that this sermon right here, I'm going to click on this and I am going to add it to love. Okay. Whoops. I didn't want that. I put it in the title. Sorry. The good. You probably saw I was doing that. Here's where I put it. Okay. So I put it right here and love, update it. So there you go. So all you do, if I write an additional sermon and I want it to be in this series, I'm just going to add that series title. Okay. So you just add you just update the series title to the title of the series that you want it to be in. Hope that makes sense. All right. Demita, how can I be sure that my sermons created and managed with Logos remain private, not automatically shared? Okay, good. Right here. See this auto-publish to Logos? Make sure you uncheck that. Okay? Make sure you uncheck that. So if I add a blank sermon here, let's say I'm going to add another sermon here. Let's to the end of July here, blank sermon, add. Okay? And I go into this. Let's just make sure here. Okay. See auto publish to Logos. Just that's not turned on. Make sure in the sermon manager, okay, that in the info panel, just make sure you uncheck that auto publish. If you want, it's going to stay unchecked. Like when I first started using the sermon manager, this is in the sermon builder like years ago. I didn't realize, like many, about this. So mine were all being auto-published, which I didn't have a problem with. They're only out there where Logos. Not many people know how to get to them, anyways. Okay, and it's only Logos users, and they have to go to their documents and download them. So I wasn't too worried. There wasn't a lot of people using my sermons. Okay, they probably wouldn't want them anyways. But anyways, I didn't know at first that they were being auto-published. So I unchecked that, and now by default, they're not auto published to Logos. And I can go in if I want to publish it, I can click that on or off. So it's that option right there. It's when you select a sermon, you have it right here. Okay, so that's how you turn that off. Good question. Oh, and Damita, I'm saying your name right. Good. All right. Marion, is it possible to train? I think you're asking, is it possible to train in dark mode for visually impaired? It is, but I can't. I have to choose one or the other. I either have to do dark mode or not. Okay. So, and most people don't, I would say, see, here's dark mode. Okay. You can just switch it right here. Okay. I usually keep it on system, I think. Okay. So, I probably won't train, Marion. I'm very sorry. I probably won't train on dark mode just because I like to have it in the mode that I assume most people have it in. I would say, just from my own experience, and no one's ever asked me that before. Okay. And as I interact with people over the years in Logos, most people use the regular mode rather than dark mode. So I train in that. I don't want people to be looking at dark mode and get confused because, it's in dark mode and they're in so I have to choose one or the other. I can't do both. And so I think at this point, it's probably better for me to just do the regular mode or light mode instead of dark mode. Sorry about that, Marion. I really apologize. I can't really do it both ways. So, okay, well, that was the last question. Think I got everything covered. Hey, don't forget to fill out the survey. Also, don't forget to check out my other webinars at logos.com/Sean Grubb. Also, jot that number on your screen down, the telephone number there. Whenever you use that number, it blesses me and my team. So whenever you want to make sure you're getting the best price for anything, call that number to be sure. And I think I'm good to go. Thanks so much for being here. Hope to see you in another webinar soon. Godspeed.